This is the UB Football Podcast with Brad Ryder and Scott Wilson.
UB Football Podcast, Brad Ryder, along with Scott Wilson. We did an emergency podcast after the win over Northern Illinois, a little midnight special because we were so pumped, and we talked, if you want to hear a ton more about that game, I know we're going to talk about it a little bit right now because I'm still excited. We're several days removed, and I'm still pumped, and I'm sure you are as well, Scott. But if you want full, immediate reaction to what happened when the Bulls went into DeKalb and took care of the number 23 team in the country, I refer you back to the previous episode. But let's just pretend that didn't happen for a couple minutes and dwell on it a little bit more like we do on the weekly version of this podcast, Scott. We are several days removed, and I have not really come down from it because I'm still just so excited about, if you can beat that team, you can beat every team in the MAC. And every game other than the game this week against UConn is against a team in the MAC. And now I'm looking at a team that's 3-1, and I'm thinking about 11-1 and what that can mean. And look, I'm not expecting a victory every single time out. And, I won't be disappointed if they don't, win all the time. But they can win every time, and we learned that, and that's, I think, what my takeaway a few days removed is from that win over Northern Illinois.
Yeah, it shows that they can certainly compete with anybody, and it showed that their defense is as good as anybody else's in the conference, and it showed that the potential for reaching ultimate goals is without a doubt on the table. It's offense still needs to come along. I think in retrospect, if you really kind of dissect what's going on right now, the defense has the ability to carry the load. But if you're talking about over the course of a season, they can't carry all the load all the time. There's going to have to be a game here where the offense really kind of picks up some of that slack because they're going to be facing teams that outside of this week are going to be familiar with them. Are going to be familiar with their personnel. So that's just something to think about going on. But you're right. I think coming into the year where quarterback was an uncertainty and there was a new coaching staff and turnover and coming off of a 3-win season, I don't think many people would have thought that the Bulls would be in serious contention to make it to Detroit at the end of the year. And especially with the kind of the change in format, which is there are no more divisions. So you can't just be king of the weak division where who cares if you lose all the crossover games? That doesn't really matter because you're going to beat everybody in your division that may be weak and you're still going to end up with a chance in Detroit. That's gone. You got to win every week. It's a new world where that pressure is amped up now, where you can't go to Northern Illinois and lay an egg and say, all right, that stinks, but every other team in our division that's got to play Northern is probably going to do the same thing, and we're going to beat them. That's off the table. And to have one up this early is huge. And then on top of that, we've been doing this podcast now for years, years and years, and we've talked even on the broadcast about it that we've been doing years and years, that if you're in the MAC, your ultimate goal is to leave September 2-2. If you can, 1, shape your schedule that way, and 2, play well enough to have that be the case that in the conference, you're setting yourself up to make a bowl game. It's how Ohio under Frank Solich went to a bowl game almost every year, is they had one big step up game. They had an FCS game, and then they scheduled 2, group of 5 games, good games, but they were all games, it was a majority of games that they felt that they could win coming out of September. Now this year there's one extra game because of the way the schedule falls out on the calendar in September, but you're looking at leaving the month at 4-1, which is way, way above where anybody thought and anybody really plans in this conference to be. Northern Illinois has a lot of fans, and they have a lot of belief in themselves. I don't think that they would have been coming into the season and realistically saying, all right, well, how are we going to navigate things after we beat Notre Dame? Like that, it just doesn't happen. I mean, Ohio last week went to Kentucky. They weren't planning on beating that team. If you're really asking their fans, they're saying, all right, we want to leave September at 2-2. That's, we want to win 2 games, win the game that we should. We're probably going to lose the game that we should. And then the other 2 are going to be toss-ups. And if we can split them, we're fine. We're going into conference play and we're going to be able to get 4 more wins. Well, if you can already be at 4 and you're really heading into the meat of your schedule, you're way ahead of schedule. And then you can really start to amp up what the expectations of what you can do for the season. I think that's where the Bulls are. If this is a huge game for them, this isn't a top 25 opponent, but if they can leave the month of September at 4-1, they have a massive game against Toledo at home, and you still got games against Akron and Kent State on the schedule. You're probably saying to yourself, all right, I'm probably already at 6 wins. So I'm probably already swimming in that bowl game water. We could really make a step up here. Like now you can really take that pressure off, and now you can really start stepping up and saying, we're going to make a push for the title. And I think you heard Coach Lembo say that in his weekly press conference. Like, this is a huge game for this team. And it's because of that. And it's also because of now the Bulls are in the same shoes that Northern was. Northern had a big win, and they had to deal with the next game. And I've said it last couple of years, and even said it last week. Teams that get top 25 wins in the group of 5 the next week do not have a good record. Now, usually those games are against Power 5 teams, and I think that's kind of where it's a little bit different.
Right.
It's not usually in conference against another MAC team. But now they have the responsibility of being able to enjoy that win from last week, but to mentally prepare themselves for a tough challenge and come back and match the same intensity and emotional give-in that they had a week ago against a team in UConn that is at home and is starting to turn the corner, they feel, and is coming off of their best performance in probably 3-4 years as a team. So they're feeling pretty good about themselves, and they know, hey, there's a team that just won a top 25 game coming in, and they're probably going to have the same type of attitude that the Bulls did last week.
A few things I want to pick up on there. One, you're dead on you're just hoping to be 2-2 after the first 4 games in the season. Two of the things that make it unusual this year. One is getting rid of the divisions. The other is the way the schedule worked out. Not only are you getting 5 games in, but you got a conference game in before the non-conference. So it's almost like, if we're thinking about it your way, the Bulls are 2-1 heading into their final non-conference game, and then fast forward, they're already 1-0 in their conference. And it's not just a West win, it's a MAC overall win because of the division. So I'm just saying that there are some different twists to the way that we have to think about this thing. But it's almost like, all right, you've already achieved 2-2 out of conference. You just have to go validate it and turn that into 3-1. 2-2 already happened. You're already 3-2 after 5 weeks, after 1 week in the MAC, and you won the most important game, which was the MAC opener. It just happened to happen before the UConn game. So I'm just trying to explain how it's a little bit twisted the way that we're manipulating this information because we're thinking about the old mentality, and that still applies, but the schedule this year is a little bit different. It's no knock on anything you said. It's kind of a little bonus that that when you wake up from non-conference play, you're going to start 1-0 in conference play, and it's against a team that happened to be ranked in the top 25 at the time, and a team that it's a more important game than it would have been in previous years when you're playing against somebody in the West. I'm with you.
I guess what I'm saying is this game against UConn turns into a bonus game. Right.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm getting.
This is a bonus game. If they were to lose this game, it sucks. But you're 1-0 in the MAC against a team that beat Notre Dame. So, that sucks. Okay. and I'm back to Toledo, and that's a massive game.
Yep.
Like that's
Exactly.
just a huge game. So this is a bonus game. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like
No, we're
if
saying the
you
same thing.
can get this. Oh my God.
Right.
Okay. All right. Now you're swimming in bigger waters. And if you can't, you're still in the same pool, and it's right where you want to be. You're still where you want to be.
Yep.
This is just bonus material.
House money type of situation. And yeah, got a great chance to, and we've seen it over the course of the years. Yeah, you've got to get to 6 wins to be bowl eligible. But I'll tell you what, the teams that get to 6 wins by going 6-1 or 6-2 all go to bowl games because they're on the map immediately and they're being considered immediately. And whether it's a bowl with a MAC tie-in or not, you're already on that list. We have most years watched as you produced this ridiculous pile of graphics and statistics to tell us what we want to happen in all the different games over the course of the last 3 weeks of the season when the Bulls are looking to get to 6 to become bowl eligible. If you get to bowl eligibility by your 8th game of the season, you are 100% going to a bowl game because the committees that shape these games are thinking about you and sending invitations. We watched multiple times UB, knowing full well, just win one of these last 3 games and you're going to the Bahamas because you have to plan that one pretty early. I don't know about you. I enjoyed the trip to the Bahamas quite a bit.
It was good.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Good.
But getting yourself in the club of bowl eligible as early as possible gives you a better chance of going to a game, going to a great place, going to a game that isn't necessarily tied to the MAC. If people know that you're one of the teams that's going to be invited, you're getting invited. If you're last minute, you got to scramble and see if you can squeeze in. And I would love to not have to do the math at the end of the year. We're saying, all right, there's 19 spots left for 25 teams or whatever it always ends up being. There's a real good chance to avoid that if you're sitting at 4-1 in September.
Well, yeah, and the Bulls have been on the other side of this argument, which is they had a strong close where they won the final 3 games of the season, got to 6-6, and got left out. They were one of the 3 or 4 teams that got left out. And, if they had gotten to 6 in mid-October, they would not have and lost out. They would have probably made a bowl game.
Yeah,
but just because
it's a better route.
It's a much easier route than saying, ugh. We better win you have to win the games, first of all, which already adds to the nerves. And then on top of that, you have to hope, you have to stay up till 10 o'clock, hoping that UTEP pulls off an upset over New Mexico. And you're like, what am I doing?
Right.
It sucks.
Yeah, I'd like to stop
I mean,
playing
it's
that
fun,
game.
but yeah, if you can get there early for sure, that's definitely going to help you out. I just think that the math on that probably works out with a win here, and Kent State being the worst team in football, and you've got them at home. You sit there, and then you start looking over the rest of the schedule. Then I think that you start feeling pretty good at getting to 6, which would be a massive step forward for the program and something that not a lot of people were expecting. At all. I think if you've read any of the stuff coming into the season or listened to any of the season podcasts from any of the big, entities out there that were doing it, if they did talk about the MAC, they talked about how I don't understand hiring Pete Lembo, and I don't think that I think this offense is going to be so bad this might be the worst team. And it's like, well, offense isn't great, but it's good enough, and that defense is pretty great, and Lembo seems to be a pretty goddamn good hire. So we're in September, and I think a lot of that stuff is already shown to be wrong. And I think that for me is one of the biggest takeaways from last weekend, which is got yourself a coach, got yourself a defensive coordinator, and you're playing complementary football on the offensive side while you're trying to kind of figure it out and learn things. Offense is usually a little bit further behind defense anyway, as far as, takeovers of new organizations and stuff like that. So, for all that was going wrong, and could have gone wrong. Not a lot of it has, man. The only thing right now is McMillan's injury,
Yeah.
which really puts a stymie into the offense. But they just faced a team. They just scored way more points than Notre Dame did on the road. Like, the offense isn't great. It's still struggling. CJ still has his moments where you're like, missed that one. And there are times when a guy will drop a ball, or you can't, the run game doesn't look as sharp as you would hoped at certain points. They still scored way more than Notre Dame did. They still have more than 30 points or more in 2 of the 4 games they've played. So I don't know. I think it's okay. I think that they're playing okay, and I think that they're going to get there. And McMillan being out stinks, but they have unlocked Victor Snow here a little bit, and he has really shown to be a real versatile weapon. That they are moving all over the field. They're finding ways to get him the ball in the slot. They're finding ways to make the big plays still, and I still don't think that we've really seen the best out of Jenkins, Johnson, and Morrow. I think that those moments are coming. So I'm okay with where we are. It's not perfect, but I get what they're doing, and I'm okay with how we look on the offensive side of the ball so far.
It's been like 10 years or 11 years, something like that, since the Bulls faced UConn, but they used to play each other constantly. And there was kind of a rivalry there because they both jumped up to Division I at around the same time, maybe the same year, maybe a year different. They met each other in the Bulls' first actual bowl appearance that they attended in the International Bowl following the 2008 season. So there is a little, I don't know, I feel a little something going into this game. They're not quite a MAC rival, but this is a familiar feeling going into this stadium for me, not for anybody else on the staff or on the team, because it's been all turned over on the coaching staff anyway. But for us, this is pretty standard procedure walking into a game at Rentschler Field, or whatever they're calling it now, Rentschler Stadium, something else field at Rentschler Stadium, I guess. How do you see the matchup here with UConn, and how do you view them compared to the opponents that the Bulls have faced so far?
Well, yeah, no, I agree with if there was a press release out tomorrow that said UConn is joining the MAC in football, your immediate response would be, yeah, that makes sense,
right?
You know what I mean? Like it would make. Now they're trying to join the Big 12 because they also happen to have the best basketball program in the country right now, and they can swim way above their heads in football because of the basketball program. But yeah, you're right. 2 Northeast teams. It feels right to play them. It feels like not only similar level, but also I like when the Bulls play Northeast teams. I like that they play Penn State like every 5 or 6 years now. At least is how it's kind of worked out. I like that they have played Pitt before. I like that they have played
BC.
BC and UMass and UConn.
Temple.
It feels right. Temple, yeah. It feels right to play those teams.
Army.
It feels I don't like that.
I know.
I don't like that. I like it in theory. I like when we schedule a bunch of games and then have to cancel them.
Yeah, that worked out all right.
Yeah. But this UConn team, Jim Mora Jr., head coach, everybody knows him from the NFL. He took the job. They were real bad when he took over. Real bad. And they've slowly but surely been getting better. And it feels like they have turned a bit of a corner here this year. Way better than they were last year already. They started the season, got blown out against Maryland. Also lost their starting quarterback in that game to a concussion, Nick Evers, who was at Wisconsin last year as the backup. So the Bull, he's a little bit familiar with the Bulls, in concept because he was at the game last year. Mm-hmm. But he transferred, got offered by UB, I believe, but eventually went to UConn. And he got hurt in that first game, didn't play the second game against Merrimack, where they scored like 600 points against that team. it's FCS game, total mismatch, and they blew them away. Came back and looked a lot better. They were leading in the fourth quarter at Duke, playing real tough. They got down 17-0, came all the way back, led 21-17 before a couple of fourth quarter scores by Duke won the game. And then last week was as good as they've looked. They took on Florida Atlantic and blew them away. You didn't see much from Evers in that game, in the passing game. He only had like 80 to 85 yards, but that's because they ran for 451 on the ground. They had two running backs over 150 yards. They want to run the ball. They want to run the football for sure. And Evers can throw it a little bit, and he's a dual threat guy. I mean, he had two running backs go for $150. He also had 80 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Eesh. So they want to run the ball. They've got a very mobile quarterback and a guy with a decent arm that on play action he can go back and hurl it a little bit. He's a lot better with some of the stuff closer to the line of scrimmage, more intermediate passes than he is some of the deep stuff. But still a pretty reliable overall guy in Evers, and they've got a couple of young running backs, and their offensive line is okay. It's UConn is really kind of a good example of the modern college football team in that they have 50 new guys on this team. And, 10 years ago, it would be like if there was 29 new guys, there's a lot of new guys. They got double that. They got 50 new guys on there. They hit the portal hard. They got a lot of Power 4 checkdowns, guys that were up at Power 4 programs and decided to transfer and weren't getting the playing time they wanted, so they came down to UConn. They've got some talent there. They've got a wide receiver in Bell that's nice. They've got a good stable of running backs, and Evers is a dual threat guy that can hurt you both ways. He can, if he's running and you're not paying attention to the backside, he's going to pull it out. And if he gets out to the sidelines, he can take one to the house on you. So it's a lot to worry about. It's a lot to think about. They got a lot of stuff going on offense, but it's finally kind of turned a corner from where they felt like they were just kind of hammering their head against the wall for the last couple of seasons, where they got a signal caller and they're starting to move the ball. Defensively, they're in a 3-3-5, kind of converted it. You can run on them a little bit, but in passing situations in that 3-3-5, they get real creative with how they blitz, and they like to blitz a lot on passing downs. They're bringing guys. They're bringing linebackers. They're twisting, they're stunting. They're doing all that stuff up front, really trying to confuse your offensive line, and they can really put the pressure on. So, are there some holes in the secondary? Are there some guys I think you can pick on? Yeah, I think there are. And I think Maryland and Duke especially did. Florida Atlantic doesn't have the talent to do that, but it certainly has been done this year in a couple of games. So there's some holes there. I don't think they're quite all the way there on defense. I think they're a little bit ahead of the defense there as far as which side of the ball. But this is definitely a good team. It's a good team. I'm not going to say, they're as good defensively or anything like that as Northern, because I don't think that they are. But if the Bulls don't fix what's going on at left tackle, it don't matter. Last week, for the first time, just a speed rusher on the left side was a big problem. Big problem. They had a guy that wasn't even on the 2 deep that had 3 sacks. So they've got to figure that out, whether that be personnel-wise or whether that's making sure that the back is always over there chipping or a tight end is there to chip and help out, sliding the protection, whatever you want to do. They've got to get that figured out because CJ can't just have a second and a half. He's got to be able to sit back there and have 2.5 to 3 seconds to really start to try and pick apart this defense. And I think if the Bulls can shake loose off the line, you can get some deep shots. I think they could try and take advantage of that. And that's one of the things that they've done really well is when they've gotten across midfield, they've taken some shots and it's paid off. They've gotten the touchdowns that they wanted. They've gotten good looks. So I think this is going to be another close game. You know, it's going to sound cliche, but from here on out, hopefully the Bulls offense is going to keep getting better and better and better each week. As of right now, where the offense is, I don't know if the Bulls are going to play another game the rest of the season outside of Kent State where it's going to be like comfortable. You know, like they're missing their best offensive player in McMillan. And once we get into the second half, they continue to run the ball and they continue to be patient, and they do start to get the running game going in the second half. But, you know, it's never going to be like showing up, scoring 28 points in the first quarter, cruise control. It's not going to be like that. You got a defense, you play complementary football, and that kind of lends itself to being close games. And I think the Bulls are fine with that overall. You know, they've shown last week they can make the plays when they need to and convert things. And they came back down 17-3 at halftime, 11-point down on the road against the top 25 team. Nothing too shabby. So they've got a real shot. I think that they've got a real shot at winning this game. You know, they're going to have to emotionally pick themselves back up and check back in and match the intensity from here on out, because they're not going to surprise anybody anymore. You know, they're not going to surprise UConn now. They're not going to go into that Toledo game and Toledo's going to be looking past them. They got Northern on the road at their big party. They went to Northern's bar mitzvah and
quinceañera.
Yeah, they showed up at the quinceañera of the Huskies and lit off the firecrackers.
Took all the free beer and whatever else was available.
Everything. They took everything. They took everything from them. So they're not going to surprise anybody.
Flipped them off on the way out.
So they're going to have to come ready to play from here on out. They're not going to surprise anybody.
Am I nuts? Am I nuts that as I listen to you break down the offense of every team every week, I listen to what you say they want to do, and then I think, all right, so what's the second thing they want to do? Because the Bulls can take that away. I know it's not going to happen every week, but we're pretty much 4 for 4 in you telling me what they're going to try to do, and then the Bulls knowing that. Maybe they listen to the podcast, maybe they come to their own conclusions, but taking away the primary thing that the other offense is trying to do. I am concerned always about the problems that the offense is going to have against the other team's defense. But until further notice, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Dolak will take care of it. Red Murdoch will take care of it. Whatever it is, you know, those D tackles will take care of it. The DBs will take whatever it is. I'm not afraid of it until I see a reason to be. Am I crazy?
No, you're right. I mean, I would assume that the Bulls are going to be heavily focused on the run. You know, they've got some speedy guys at wide receiver that could cause a problem deep over the top and play action. So did Northern. They didn't. Right. So, the corners are playing well and they're playing physical for the Bulls. I think that helps. I think that helps Coach Bowen feel a little bit more comfortable that, listen, if something's going wacky and we really got to start bringing an extra body, I feel okay with them leaving them man-to-man. I feel comfortable with McCarthrins. I feel comfortable with Cooper and with Pleasant that if we got to take a play and sell out to stop a run, we could leave them in man-to-man coverage on the outside and be okay. And even if you give up a catch, they're going to tackle them. You know, it's not going to turn into, you know, letting somebody loose out the barn door because you can't get them on the ground. And I think that helps significantly. The play that they've gotten from the secondary. And then the physical nature of your safeties. Fuqua plays hard and tackles. So does Brown. He gets down there in the box, no problem. With as much nickel as teams play now, your safety and nickel basically have to be willing to play at times like a linebacker and have to have that physical nature. And I think they do. McNair plays physical. How many times have we seen him this year where they bring him off the edge just like they would a backer? And he's chasing guys down from behind, or he's making a play and holding the edge. You know, they've got the guys to kind of make things really difficult on teams, and they have so far. You're going to have to take away UConn's running game. If you let them start to consistently run and pick up 6 yards a chunk, you're toast. I mean, I guess it's that way for everybody, but especially this team. If you put them in third and long and force them to pass, I think you like your chances. As long as you can contain the quarterback from scrambling and getting super loose, stay in your rush lanes, keep them in the pocket, force them to throw. I think you feel pretty good about it. But if you're thinking about one thing to take away, you gotta slow the run game.
Do you have any lingering fear about the personal foul penalties that took place in the first half? There were 5 called, 4 of them accepted because 2 happened on one play. But they cleaned it up for the second half. Is there any fear that this is a team that's prone to that sort of thing? Because when you're talking about getting a team off the field on third down, how many times last week did the Bulls shoot themselves in the foot by taking penalties, and not even penalties of being overmatched, penalties of being angry and shoving or grabbing the part you're not supposed to grab, whatever it is. They're not that team, right? That was just a weird half.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there wasn't any other problems in any of the other games with that. Last week, we tried to tell everybody. Last week, that was a real emotional, big game. That was a big, big game. And both teams showed up for it, man. Both teams don't like each other. They didn't. And, the Bulls got called a little bit early, got it under control second half. If it continued second half, I would say
we have a problem.
Something to keep an eye on. But they went in at halftime, and the coaches said, hey, if you guys stop doing that, we might win. And they came out, and they didn't do that anymore, and they won. So, and then a couple of the fouls, technically it's a personal foul on a face mask. But, it's not the same as punching a guy after a play or,
right,
shoving an official or, something like that, where you're saying that there's a definite discipline problem. You've got a fast guy that got to the edge, and you're saying, I'll take the 15 yards rather than let this guy get to the end zone. I'm talking him down by his head and doing it that way. So, I'm not that worried about it. I wouldn't be that worried about it.
Anything else that you would like to say to the people before we shut this down and await a 12 p.m. kickoff at UConn on Saturday?
This is the first noon kickoff, right?
Yeah.
Of the year? It's the first early kickoff. So, kegs and eggs with Brad Ryder on the pregame show at 11. That's what I would say.
All right. I'm in.
Or how about this? If you got nothing to do this weekend, it's a nice stadium. It's not a massive stadium. Plenty of good tickets available, I bet. If you get a chance, take the drive down there. It's a noon kickoff. You can be back at night. You can be back. We will be, but that's different. But, you might want to check it out. Hartford is nice. And then you get the East Hartford Stadium there where you get to go. And again, it's a nice stadium. Go support the Bulls if you get a chance to, especially the week after they get that top 25 win. It'd be nice to see a little bit more of the right color blue in the stadium. Sounds
good, man. See you there.
All right, can't wait.
I don't know about you guys, but I just want to get the hell out of here.